What's up, tech inclusion? I have like 100% odds for tech difficulty. One time I tested this and then I got up there and they're like, oh, sorry, the battery died. I'm like, so it's really awkward when you run a tech group. You just can't have these types of tech issues. All right, we got the slides working? No? Yeah? All right, how many of you have been to a Lesbians Who Tech event? Raise your hand. All right, so if you know this, you know we start every single event with a high five. So turn to your neighbor, give them a high five, warm it up. It's 4 p.m. We're gonna do this together. All right, you guys, we're gonna get through this energy. I almost like want to make you move to the middle, you know? Like we just maybe need to hug it out. All right, so real quick, Lesbians Who Tech, we're 30,000 queer women and the people who love us, allies. We've done events in over 40 cities. We do big summits in New York and San Francisco. Our 5th anniversary summit is in March. You're all invited. We have a coding scholarship for LGBTQ women named after Edie Windsor. How many of you know who Edie Windsor is? What you might not know, she was actually one of the first engineers at IBM in the 60s. She was literally the first person in all of Manhattan to receive a personal computer. She's literally a hidden figure. We've helped produce a trans tech summit, one-day shadow career program called Bring a Lesbian to Work Day. We used to do White House events. We don't anymore. I know, right? Again, we're going to hug it out together. We do a lot of storytelling. We were just in Vogue with some of our other members. We're actually producing a new summit called Ida B. Wells. How many of you know who Ida is? Raise your hand. So she's one of my favorite hidden figures, data scientist, use data to track lynching in the South. So this summit is for mid-level and senior-level executive women in tech. We produce something called the Tech Jobs Tour. We're launching a new product, which I'll tell you about later. We love hula hoop contests. We just love hula hoop contests. Do you guys like hula hoop? Yes? Yeah? No? All right, we also love high fives. Let's do one more, because I'm just feeling like we need to get the energy up a little bit. Turn to your neighbor, high five. High five. Come on, you guys. We're all at this conference together. Let's do it. Yeah, feels good, you know? So I started Lesbians Who Tech a little under 5 years ago because I would go to tech events, and they look like this. And then I would go to LGBTQ events, and they look like this. And I started to wonder, do lesbians in tech actually exist? Because everywhere I turned, it was always men. And so because I am very stubborn, I wanted to prove myself right, and that I couldn't build a community that was focused on queer women. Turns out I was wrong, right? Today we're 30,000 members all over the world, and we had this written up about one of our summits, and it said, if every tech conference were like Lesbians Who Tech, tech would be a much better place. So if you haven't been, just trust me, assume the best. And here I want to share some of my lessons that I've learned in building this community, some of the things that we think about every day, all damn day. I'm sure you guys do too. So lesson number 1, intentionally focusing on intersectionality. I know we think about this all the time, right? This is like the buzzword of today, but I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind. Ready? You guys ready? Lesbians are women. How many of you knew that? Well, you all can be. So no, literally, I would be on the call with people, be like, telling them about the organization, and they're like, Leanne, sounds awesome, but we only fund women's programs right now. We're not doing LGBT stuff. And I'm like, look, this is gonna be awkward for a second, but we're gonna get through it together. I'm serious, it happened almost 50% of the time I would talk to companies in the beginning. This is not a joke, real talk. It used to happen all the time. I'm like, lesbians are women. And they were like, oh, right. And still people are like, let me introduce you to LGBTQ ERG. And I'm like, actually, I'd really love to be introduced to the women's ERG as well. We can do both, right? But lesbians are also women of color. We're transgender women. We're veterans. We're mothers, right? We're intersectional by nature. But we think about that when we plan every event, when we do everything. And a lot of these lessons are focused on community building, but they can also be transferable to building teams, retention, building your ERG group, right? These are lessons that are transferable. And, just as much as we can, not everyone, loves to be, well, that was a cat jumping into a box. It was really cute. Anyways, put into a box. And we have to think about that all the time because, literally as humans, we're literally programmed to put things into boxes. That's how our brain works, right? So we have to kind of fight that. Lesson number 2, you have to build trust. Every time I walked into an LGBTQ event, in a tech event, I would expect it to be mostly men. I would expect it to be mostly white, And that's not because, I was just assuming the worst. That's because I went to thousands of events, and that's how it was every time I went in. So you have to build trust. One of my favorite examples of building trust is Megan Smith. You guys know her? Former CTO of the United States. The White House actually emailed us, and they're like, will you help us put on this event? I said, yes, obviously. Asked Megan to speak, and that's where she got recruited to be the CTO of the United States. It was at that event that they asked Lesbians Who Tech to produce. They gave first. They built trust, and out of it, they got a more than qualified CTO candidate. Representation matters. We all know this. If you start your founding team, if you start a community, there's a couple, groups. They're like, Leanne, we can't find the queer women. I'm like, have you thought about the fact that you have 4 male founders, and maybe the lesbians aren't coming because it's all gay men? And they're like, oh God, it's a good point. That's a good point, right? Representation matters in every stage. It's really so much easier to start early in the startup phase. It's much harder to fight later on because, again, humans are biased. We're literally programmed to connect with people who are similar to us. So it makes sense that our networks are going to be biased too. Number 4, quotas. I started quotas from the very, very beginning because I knew the type of community I wanted to create. So we had, from the beginning, 50% women of color speakers, and we've hit it every single year. Every single year. Then we added 10% transgender and gender nonconforming. We added a 20% Black and Latinx. We were 25% last year. We even let dogs on stage because, we're lesbians after all. You guys are a tough crowd. Look, what gets measured is more likely to get done, period. The second that I stop tracking our quotas with data, they start to fall behind the wayside. Why? I'm white. Maybe I know more white people. More white people apply. Right? These are things that happen. You have to be intentional and measure it along the way. Things don't change unless there's urgency. That's just the way the world works, right? We know if we have a talk to prepare in 2 weeks, when are we going to work on it? Maybe the night before. If we don't have that urgency, things don't change. And I want to be really clear about this. Quotas do not lower the standard. They just change the criteria, right? There's quotas for women on boards now in Norway, Spain, France. And what they found is that it just forces them to look in other areas, right, for talent. If you're looking for someone to take your company public, where are you going to look? Oh, the list of people that have taken a company public. You know what that list is full of? White, straight, cisgendered men, mostly named John. I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. So if you want someone that's not in that category, then you've got to change the criteria to not taking a company public because that's what exists right now. And what's been really powerful to see is we actually didn't have a quota on attendees, but because for the last 4 years we've had quotas with speakers, in New York this year we hit 50% women of color attendees, which is, super, super powerful. Our team we follow the same set of quotas with our team. So this is the Lesbians Who Tech Squad. Lesson number 5, you can never fully remove bias. We live in a systemically sexist, racist, anti-LGBTQ world. That's just the way it is. It's all around us. We have to fight bias every single day with intention. Lesson number 6, you can be specific without being exclusive. I want to say this one more time. You can be specific in terms of providing value without being exclusive. So how many of you identify as queer? Just curious. All right. So one of the things that happens with Lesbians Who Tech is obviously lesbians, bisexual women, maybe transgender women who don't identify as lesbian, they feel excluded, right? We made a really conscious choice early on. Lesbian spaces are dying. Lesbian bars are dying. We felt like, this is actually like a 20-minute talk, so I won't go, there's like drinking involved. We should, talk about it. But just know that we felt like we could be specific in terms of the value without being exclusive. So what we do is we use queer women, we use LGBTQ women, non-binary, we say, and the people who love us, which doesn't mean just your significant other. Some people are like, is that just my girlfriend? I'm like, no, it's allies, it's friends. But we use this language to be inclusive and at the same time being specific on the word lesbian because we feel it's really important to reclaim that word. Right now, lesbian is pretty much almost 100% used on the internet for porn. And that's a part of what we're fighting every day, right? Is like reclaiming that word because many people fought really hard to have a word that both means women and being LGBTQ. Don't assume it's pipeline. This is a really, really important lesson. So one of the things I think that happens, especially in the inclusion, the recruiting space, is like, there's just not enough pipeline, right? But when I think back to Lesbians Who Tech, I could have assumed that there just weren't enough lesbians, right? There just weren't enough lesbians in tech. But ask yourself, are we actually providing the right type of value to attract the diverse and underrepresented person, right? Maybe it's not just pipeline, because look, we've spent, what, $1 billion on this problem. Things haven't moved very far. And this is bigger than just diversity and inclusion. This is about economic opportunity for all Americans, because right now, an average tech salary in this country is $89,000. The average American salary is $29,000. That's a huge difference, right? I mean, we're obviously, underrepresentation is a huge, huge problem. We have to solve that, but this is about jobs. This is about the American dream. This is about economic power. Think about what would America look like if underrepresented people in this country had more economic power. Think about that. Would we be where we are today? I don't think we would be where we are today. So last two lessons, two quotes from some of my favorite queer women. Include everyone, fix everything, which Megan Smith says all the time. And maybe it's just this simple. The best way to hire people of color and women is just to hire them. Maybe? Thank you over here, a little laughter. All right, thank you so much.